it worked for me as an idea. And so, yeah, I became but it took me 4 years. I shakabuku my sister, my best friend. And it was like, and one day my best friend goes, well, I'm going to go and get Gohonzon. Gohonzon is this scroll that we chant to. And I was like, wait, you what? He said, I'm getting Gohonzon. I was like, and he'd been chanting for like maybe, I don't know, 6-8 months. And I was like, okay, I'll join you. I was like, I've been doing this for 4 years and I hadn't, or, years and I hadn't. So yeah, I became a member of the SGI, which is the organization. And that was, when I was 9, a bit later, because I'd started chanting, but I just used to I chanted, and it was like, it kept me in rhythm, and that's really, for me, it kept me in a flow. It's like the rhythm of life. And in a way, when I was doing my sculpture exam, I remember I was painting like a whale bone and a lemon or a pineapple. Like it was a whale bone and like some kind of piece of fruit. And I was like, I'd look at it, I'd be painting. It was a 15-hour still life oil painting exam. I had a still life drawing exam as well as the sculpture. I'd go to the toilet, I'd be like, nam, come back, and I'd be like, and finish the painting. And I think like, I got the highest grade, and then they called and said, we'd like to keep this work as the highest grade for the country, kind of thing, as like this is the bench. And I was like, I hadn't been doing art, and so I really tested it, and it was, I think the power, as you know, when you set an intention, and at such a young age, for young people today, I think having something like something that you can trust, and I think, I really admire. I think it's hard to have faith. But
with the chanting and with the practice or the habit of that, what were some of the more philosophical lessons or principles that kind of became anchors or a compass in your life at that time? Were there certain teachings or lessons that stood out and you were like, oh, these are going to form the principles that I'm going to live by?
Yeah, so many. Daisaku Ikeda, fortunately, has written extensively, and it's very accessible.
For those who don't know, please tell us who.
So Daisaku Ikeda is my mentor. He brought this practice from Japan around the world. It was it was in the 60s. I think he is when he left Japan and traveled first to Hawaii. And the founding members of this practice, and many of whom are wonderful Japanese women who have been living around the world. But he brought this practice to 193 countries, I think now. His mentor, Jose Toda, and before that, Jose Toda's mentor, Machuguki, in the 60s in Japan, brought this practice forward. And Daisaku Ikeda really made it accessible. He wrote extensively. He's written a book about his book about his life is written from another perspective. It's like it's him, but it's written as another person. Would you say it third person? Well, if it's not the same, but if it's him, but it's not. He's got a pseudonym for who it is.
Yeah, right, a pseudonym. Yeah,
right. So but it's. I think there are so many ideas within the practice, but at its core, it's like I just find that through chanting, you say Nam, I devote myself, Myoho Renge Kyo, to the mystic law of cause and effect through the vibration of sound. And the sound is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Myoho Renge Kyo is the title of the Lotus Sutra. And as you may or may not know, but Shakyamuni, our Buddha, the Buddha, Siddhartha, he wrote sutras, meaning teachings, and in the last 8 years of his life, it was the Lotus Sutra before he passed that he sort of proclaimed as the teaching that would lead all living beings to enlightenment in this lifetime. And so that's why we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo being also the title of the Lotus Sutra. And then I recite 2 chapters from the expedient means of the lifespan chapter from the Lotus Sutra, which is part of this practice, which is beautifully Japanese because it traveled from India through the Silk Paths and landed in Japan. And it was Nichiren Daishonin, who was in 1270 around then. So you call that the 13th century. He propagated the teaching, and he brought this teaching to the world at that time. So he enshrined in Sumi ink the Gohonzon, which is, as I sort of said, that scroll that I chant to. He inscribed it with Sumi ink, and he gave, because he recognized that sort of humans needed something, a mandala, something to look at. And really, it's like polishing my mirror. So excuse my ADD brain, but it's like polishing my mirror. So I think about, when I chant, I think about, in India, it was like a bronze mirror, and you polish it and then you see your reflection, right? So the more I chant, the more I see my reflection, and I see the things, or like it's like a tea leaf, a glass of tea, and I'm just like stirring away, and it comes to the surface, and you'll do chanting. And I think as you get older, and I have, 2 beautiful children, and you realize that like, it's sort of, I think death is a big part of life, and it's something that some people can be very uncomfortable with or challenged by, and we're mystically, here for such a short period of time relative to everything. And this practice is like kind of constantly preparing you. And it's sort of, so the obstacles that you see in life, because essentially, the way that I've learned through my practice is that we're born, we grow old, we'll get sick, and we'll die. And so will everyone around us. And hopefully nobody we love too soon. But the truth is, you will lose. And I think that when you can see the obstacles in your life, and it may be just waking up in the morning and getting a bill that you can't afford to pay, or, for somebody, or when you take the obstacles in your life as the opportunities for your growth, when you reframe it as, oh, wow, because the truth is, at least my truth through my practice is that we're never not going to have obstacles, right? And it's just how we see those obstacles and whether they become our benefit. So it's like painting a canvas, right? Like when I broke my back, or when I had, near-death experiences, experiences, I say, about a few kind of interesting things in my life, or a heartbreak, or a heart reveal, or, something that happened in school, or things like those are the deep colors in your canvas. Otherwise, everything's a sort of like plain, nice, and you want those rich textures, right? Or at least I do. So I found that, the practice has given me the sort of the pathway. And by the way, I am like, I intentionally sabotage myself. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not chanting. I haven't chanted because I'm like, I get in my own way. I'm far from like, I'm like literally, and I'll get picked up on it by friends. I have a very, I have David and my best friend Mark and Chris who's in the show actually, who I call Gibbo. We all practice, and so we kind of keep each other kind of accountable a little bit as well. But as you get older, I think you probably experience in your own way, but it becomes so much harder, just to keep that kind of that faith in everything because but it's been for me that I think I was such a young age to get it. I know people who are born into it because their parents were so, and that's like this fortune baby I call it, and that's so blessed, such a blessing. But the 8 winds is something that Nichiren Daishonin wrote this book. I didn't intend this to be all about Buddhism.
I love it. It's beautiful.
I'm just like riffing.
It's beautiful.
But like he wrote the Go Show, and it's like letters to his disciples. And it's crazy because they're written in 1270 something in the 13th century, but they're so weirdly current. Like it's a bit, because it's like, there's a samurai, Shingo Kingyo, who I kind of like see myself as like, maybe I was, like I have this like nice idea of who he was, but like he had shared the practice with his master, and his master was like giving him all these lands. And then all these other samurai were jealous. And so they tore his character down, and he was banished. And then he managed to kind of come back because of his practice and communicate to his Lord. And it kind of worked. But it's like, we know that story. It happens in every office or in every city, or at least, we've heard it time and time again. So they're so sort of current and relative. But
absolutely.
The 8 winds is a really great, is one that I grew up. A wise man is not swayed by the 8 winds of praise, censure, honor, disgrace, pleasure, suffering, prosperity, decline. And
wow, that is really powerful.
And that was one that just like, for me, it was like, just, I don't think I've I think I've been swayed many a time.
How does one not get swayed by praise? And what was the second word?
Praise and censure. So the opposites, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how does one not get swayed?
Yeah, I think as a younger man, and I don't like. I feel I'm young at heart, so I kind of like.
You look young, man.
Some years ago, when I was what I feel like really in the eye of the storm, and just like my whole life was just like tabloid fodder in some ways. It felt like constantly, and anything I did, I think that was really challenging for me. It was like, and I don't think I handled. I didn't have any kind of major meltdowns, but like I was really upset about how my character felt like it was being dragged. Actually, it's why I started an Instagram account, which I started very late in the game, but I only did it because actually my partner Katie had said, it's a really good way to gather the reins and create a narrative. And like, now I know it's like, I don't know how many people even really use. There's so many different new app things, media platforms, but in a way, it kind of was it sort of helped me to kind of create my own narrative, at least, and to put messaging out that I felt was, reflected my ideas and views, which obviously are mostly very centered around my practice. And Daisaku Ikeda, really, his writings.
I love seeing you post about Daisaku Ikeda. It's one of my favorites.
So he says he has
phenomenal.
Beautiful things. And so, so I think I just kind of, my practice definitely helped me with that. It was definitely anchoring. I think I got very good at hiding, which I would never encourage. And but in a way I kind of like, I got very good at putting a hat on and moving through the world without. And, if I could go back, I would probably say to that kid, like, you know what? Shine it, bro. Just you're here to make mistakes. And if they're public or private, they're the mistakes that's that deep purple in your canvas. Yeah. Just, it's not really how you go down, it's how you get up. Right. So, and trust your heart, trust that you're in the flow. And that's something that I don't think I had a lot of, as a kid. So as you move on, you just go, well, the noise just eventually subsides. And now I'm like, have a perspective on it just from years. And I'm like, it's helped to know, I think but it was definitely through chanting that I think, and my practice and friends and the community that I had around me at the time, and also being on the road and working so much. I think I just most of it was just like, didn't really look at it, didn't really pay attention. But
hearing you say that, I mean, what's beautiful is that it often feels like so many of these lessons can only be lived and understood when they're lived, but it's helpful to know the lesson you're learning and how it fits in.
Yeah.
It's almost like you had to go through that. You couldn't have asked yourself to deal with it better or do better at the time.
No.
But the fact that you had this lesson, philosophy, practice to guide
fall back
you
on, or to like kind of understand, give me perspective.
Yeah.
For sure. That was a massive blessing. Yeah.
When you're talking about fears and your first fear all the way through to this, obviously when you watch the show, there's this feeling of the external fear, right? Like the idea of jumping out of a plane, the idea of rock climbing, all of these things are naturally inherently scary.
Right.
What's the internal fear when you're doing it? Like, what is the dialogue that's going on? Because obviously you're quite a reflective, thoughtful individual. What's really the fear? Because it obviously isn't jumping out of the plane for you.
Yeah. I think it comes back to trust and faith, right? And self-worth, right? There are protocols that you follow. Like all of these like adrenaline junkie athletes that you see, maybe posting a 15-second clip on a social media page have spent their lives and potentially weeks, days, years, hours to perfect whatever it's you're seeing for a 15-second moment. And, like Luke Aikens jumped from like the stratosphere without a parachute, landing in a net. Camila Jabbar, who was my freediving coach, along with Will Trubich, who runs this vertical blue competition in the Bahamas, where I was diving. Supreme athletes who, Camilla has swum she's the Mexican world record holder of like 80 plus meters now. That's I think I got to 37 meters in about the 4 days, which was like 100 and I was really struggling because of my mask. I wish I'd not worn a mask. I wish I'd just like had goggles, like you have these little, I wish I'd thought that through but I had some issues with equalizing. But, and/or Mo Beck, who's this adaptive climber who just, was born with one hand and started climbing as a child and just, is the woman in her field doing what she does. And it's like a glass half, it's this overflowing. These people are just overflowing. But what it is that they are experts and it is a life choice almost, right? So in a way, like people have said to me, have you gone back to doing the the wingsuiting and I'm like, I really can't wait to do that. But it's like, it's not something you just dip in and out of, it's a real lifestyle choice and it's a commitment and it's something that gives you excellence. And I think so trusting in that moment that trusting myself, for me, it was about becoming capable, right? In a way, like learning to follow the protocols, learning to be present enough to take on board everything that's being told to me so that I can apply it to the moment that I'm in. So when I'm in the plane and about to jump and I think to be fair, I think the climbing, I got such potty mouth on the climbing because I was so frustrated and terrified by the gear, by the knots, by like whether I tied it right or whether the rope was going to hold me or whether I was going to, and mostly because actually I had Mo's life in my hands, right? Like, so, but it was, I think, becoming capable and having that like education and then being accountable for myself. So in the moment where the fear is really kicking in, it's just trusting. Like kind of coming back to everything I've learned from my practice was trusting your life, having faith in your life. I think faith is so important, and I think misguided faith is sometimes so challenging for us as a species because it's led to so much heartbreak and conflict. But actually, I really admire people of faith because most people of faith, if it's not misguided, are really doing everything they can. And because it's my Buddhist practice, we're trying to be respectful of all faith. I kind of feel like I know my path is the right one. Like, I wish everyone would join me on this, but I totally respect that everybody has their path, and I think that's what it comes down, right? Respect. So it's like a bit of it. The whole show was a bit of a human experiment for me, and I think the experiment and the lessons that I continually learn was a bit of like self-respect, becoming capable, trusting my life, and trusting that this was part of an important and necessary part of my life. And after all, I'd chosen to do it, and I could find myself at times in these like super challenging, physically challenging moments, mentally, physically, and emotionally. They were all totally different. So, like wingsuiting just was, it's super unnatural to jump out of a plane. And then I think what Luke said to me was that I'm probably the first person to have jumped at 26 jumps. Wow. So 25 jumps, I got my A license for skydiving, and my 26th jump was in a wingsuit. But he had me on this trajectory, but he knew from what he was watching, and we were working every day for a few, not even that long, but he knew that I was capable to do. So the free diving, I just didn't know if I was going to come back up. I was like, wait, what? What if because I had, and I think I was emotionally really challenged by this idea, like respecting my life, treasuring my life, because I think in some ways in my youth, treasuring my life, valuing my life, understanding the value of life, and being grateful for it in a very profound way. Like I think I have, a stadium of angels or Buddhas or whoever you want to call them. But And with climbing, it was like, I'd find myself in these moments, as I said, I'd be like, I'm really having a hard time here. And I would I had this, one of my assistants who became a producing partner who I was working with for so long, who knew me so well, but I would just be like freaking out. She could see I was freaking out, but I was freaking out about something like, why am I wearing this t-shirt? What does this t-shirt mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was so interesting how the mind, right? It's like you become, you know what I mean? Instead of just getting in I became very, I was like trying to control the environment, control the things, because I felt so out of control. Like, this t-shirt is not the right t-shirt, or whatever it might be. It was like, for me, it could have been anything, but it was like, because I needed to control whatever I had on me, because I felt so kind of out of control in some ways. So as a human, I felt like it was a human experiment, honestly. Like, I was like, how much does it take for me to crack? How much pressure before and what does that look like in some ways? But in a way, like, that was I kept coming back to Namyo Renge Kyo. What is meant for you is not going to go away, right? It's not, and but it was my first time in an unscripted world, right?
Yeah.
I think because of the nature of my upbringing, dyslexia and education, that was such a challenge, although I got it all, did it all. This is trusting my heart, right? You're trusting your experience, right? I mean, that's what you've done so well. You're able to communicate from the heart, listen, be present, and you know what I mean? And come in with the points that are like, oh wow, you're actually absorbing and taking that on. And I think, and sharing and putting a message out. But it's sometimes hard for people, especially I think, when you're younger.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I'm listening to you right now,
these adaptogens are great. My mind is firing. I'm like, I'm going to take more of this.
Good. I'm glad. We'll get you another. Are you finished with that one? Do you want another one? When I'm listening to you right now, and I really appreciate you going there, because of course the external is hard, but I love how you boiled it down to that idea of trying to control the little you think you can control in the midst of the fact that you can't control anything of this. Yeah. And it's interesting how that is such a great metaphor for life.
Somehow, yeah.
Because we're all trying to control everything we can control and what we can't control, not recognizing that so much is outside of our control. And that makes us in life feel helpless. And it can often make us retreat and hide and disappear. But when you're climbing a mountain, you can't disappear. Like, you can't retreat from that. Yeah. Right? It's almost like you have to sit in that discomfort and you have to sit with that emotion, which is actually what real life is demanding of us. But we find a way to kind of hide it, push it away, deal with it. Yeah. And so it's the most physical, real way. I remember when, and this is what I think hopefully the show will, encourage people to do. We all have something that's uncomfortable for us, whether it's internal or external. And I think everyone needs a friend who encourages them to do some extreme sports now and again. My wife needs less encouragement than I do. As life has gone on, I've become a bit more reserved. And I had a friend a couple of years ago who made me do skydiving, who made me do crazy things with him. And I was really grateful for that because it made me realize how many blocks I had up here that I was unaware of. I thought I'd conquered so many blocks, but there was still so much lack of trust and so much lack of that feeling of, oh, actually, I can sit in discomfort. I was almost trying to get away from discomfort because at one point in my life, I'd put myself through so much of it. Right. I now just wanted to be in a comfortable space, which is fair.
Fair.
But one thing you say in the docuseries, kind of in the beginning, was this idea of, you say, being on the edge makes me feel most alive. But then at the same time, I see you as someone who really values the little things day to day. And obviously with your Buddhist practice is mindful and present. How do you reconcile the two? Because, if you're feeling all this adrenaline and this extreme sport, and that makes you feel alive, but then how do you also feel alive in the tiny moments of maybe being with your kids or being with Blue, as your beautiful dog that we're just with now.
Thank you. Yeah. I think, it's such good questions. I think two things, and I want to come back to that question, but I think in a way, like, what are the parts of the show is like, what did it take for me to be remarkably present? Look, I'm one of the most privileged people. I consider myself. The experiences that I've had in the world, in life, I feel just so grateful all the time. I wake up feeling grateful, and I feel, that partly that's my practice to giving me the opportunity. But for some people, it's like, look, just getting up from the couch and going to the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take for them to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I know through COVID, which was the idea, it was like, what does it take for that person just to go to the park, just step outside, take your shoes off, socks off, stand in the grass and look at the trees, and just, that may be all it takes, but it may be so challenging for one person, for that person. So like, yes, for me, when I was kind of raw dogging it with all my kind of ADD and just things happening, I was just like in it. I say that because when I say raw dogging, I mean, I was just like, I've subsequently found like a really amazing like peptide, which is fantastic. That's helped me really kind of connect my thoughts at times, because sometimes it's really disjointed. But in a way, I love that about my thinking, because it kind of is sporadic. But for some people, as I said, the hope for the show for me was like, it took me, okay, for me, who, arguably throughout my life has really, loved the thrill. Like if I'm going really fast, either on a motorcycle or in a car or whatever it may be, I feel like I'm more focused. Like I'm more likely to have an accident at 30 miles an hour than I am at 60 miles an hour, because I'm just, I switch into some other mode. And it's kind of true for everything I've done in my life. Like if it's really up against me, then I'm going to step up in a whole other way. Like for example, Lord of the Rings, where I was like my first movie really. And I'm with Ian McKellen and Ian Holm and Christopher Lee and Viggo Mortensen and even Elijah, who I'd seen in movies, and, like these amazing actors, all of whom had so much experience. And it was an amazing gift. But it was also like, okay, step up, and the blessing of that. So I think you kind of take that high of these insane things that you're doing, but it's all really like relevant to like sometimes I can wake up in the morning and I just can't figure out even which way to go. I'm like, I can feel like I'm like, wait, what? I'm so grateful, but wait, what am I? My brain is like, it's like trying to bring it online, and it can be really overwhelming in terms of, so it's like back to chance, back to breath, back to presence, back to stillness, back to gratitude, back to like, I had this, I think I had this kind of really remarkable plant journey, medicine journey. And, I set an intention around the feminine, because we touched on my mother briefly. And I was like, my mother gave me this, which is wonderful, and loved me wholeheartedly, and was in boarding school at the age of 4. So it was like, didn't really have a full, sense of what nurture and things was, but she was so is and remains so loving, and a great opportunity for me to continue to grow and evolve. But I set an intention before I was like, because I'd wanted to ask Katie to marry me, and I was like, I just need to kind of check in. And I'd never done, this particular medicine, and I was like, I want to just, so I flew somewhere to meet this, and I'd set this intention around the feminine, right? And I was like, and basically the 3 points that came out, I was like, am I clean? Am I good here? Can I move forward with this? Because it's important to me to know that I'm clear, right? And so it's with Aya, right? So you get this feeling of, and somebody had explained to me that you have this amazing feminine energy coming at you. And I think you're supposed to do 3 cups, and I took 5. Well, I wanted to have this, I was just waiting. I was there and I was just on a couch with this amazing room of musicians and this wonderful guide. And he just looked at me at 6 a.m, and he had been journeying with me, and he was like, you want more? And I was like, one more. And then I had this like sensation of lightness and this, I think basically it's like our minds, right? You're exploring aspects of your mind that the neuro pathways that you just haven't like looked at, right? You understand that it's the map of your mind, right? That's kind of, and you've disconnected your ego enough to be humble enough to take on. And this message was, well, first of all, just be grateful. Look at your life, right? Second of all, you don't have an issue with women. Look at your life, wonderful women in your life. And even if there are aspects of women in your life that you have, that it's all been part of your evolution. But maybe the feminine in you, it was like, she was, there was this, it was like, so maybe you could nurture a bit more of the feminine in you.
Right.
And I was like, okay. But it was like nurture, I guess the creative artistic side, the just like pondering and poetical and things that I hadn't. And then, but the last one that I remember that was it was like, whenever you're with somebody, it may be the last time you see them again. You just don't know. So make it great. What have you got to lose? You may never see this person again. We don't know. Life is like, you don't know. So just make it great. Because at a young age, I'd had a real challenge. I'd had people come at me consistently, right? And I'd be like, and I'd be in whatever mental state or moment that I was in. And sometimes I'd be like, and all they want is this moment. And it's so easy for me to just go, hey, yeah, photo, sure, yeah, here, that, no problem. And then carry on. But sometimes it was just like, it felt like almost acid because I was just, what it represented at a different time in my life was a restriction, right? And I wanted to feel free. But I think that moment of that thing for me was like, you may never see this person again. You don't know. Life is not built like that. So just make it great. It's not hard, right? Or at least leave it with that, So I think that was did I answer the question?
Yeah. No, I mean, so much, you gave me so much more to unpack there. I love it. I mean, on that point, I do think if we lived in a world where you genuinely believed that any moment with anyone could be your last.
Yeah.
The way you'd speak to them, the way you'd look at them,
Respect.
the way you'd listen to them would just transform. And I'm sure you have friends. I have friends who've lost parents, partners, people, and they all regret their last conversation with them because it was conflict or it was an argument or it was a debate that they didn't need to have.
They've been in conflict, who knows,
Yeah, and they didn't know that was going to be the last time. And I've spoken to friends who've held that for so much longer because it becomes such a hard release to know that you could have, should have, would have said something differently.
Might have done it differently.
Might have done it differently. But going back to what was revealed to you and even that, I mean, I look at relationships as such a area where so many of our fears are brought to the surface. I found this with my own wife. Like, we've been together for 11 years and married for 8.
What's the secret?
And it's being comfortable with the idea that she is also the deepest mirror I'll ever have.
Right.
Because no one in the world sees all of my flaws, all of my mistakes, all the moments when I'm not perfect. I always joke about how like my wife knows whether I meditated this morning or not. Like no one else does, but my wife knows. And my wife knows whether it was quality or whether it was distracted. My wife knows whether, my wife knows whether I left my socks on the floor, whatever, just whether it's silly or deep, it's she is in a position. And when your partner doesn't abuse that authority and doesn't use it as a form of control, but actually reflects back some care and compassion, it can be a really, it's almost like you can't grow without it. What scared you about relationships? And what, like you said, you had no problem with women, that wasn't a thing, but what was revealed to you in your relationship? What's been revealed to you in your relationship is a better question.
I think I'm constantly learning to let go. Because anything that I try to hold on to, whether it's good or bad, doesn't serve me. Not in the relationship, and it doesn't really serve either of us. And that's really hard. to keep letting go, and to keep letting her go. You know, the idea of, because I think when you're in a deeply loving, committed relationship, you want to control or own or have, and you know, even just letting go of ideas of how things should be, or the idea of what intimacy or intimate moments are to you versus them, or how, you know, whatever it may be, because you've chosen that person, you're on a journey with that person, you know, you're going to learn this lesson. And if you've chosen that person, then that's the person you're going to learn that lesson with. You know, I mean, that's the opportunity, right?
That's real. Yeah, that really resonates. I feel like that's why we'd rather let go of the person and have a new 6-month period with someone new, because you don't have to let go in that 6 months. Like that 6 months is almost full of holding on, and every idea and every hope and possibility remains intact. Like you don't have to dismantle it or question it or break it down. But you are so right that the amount of misconceptions I've had to let go of as we spend more time together.
And I think it's going to change every day, right?
Absolutely.
It's like every day I choose you.
Yeah.
You know, because also, you know, your wife is changing, right? 7 years from now, she's going to be a completely different human.
Yeah.
You have no idea, right? You know, you clearly have been around each other, and you do probably have a sense, but we don't know.
You don't know.
It's the same thing as like, I may never see that person again.
Yeah.
Every day, you may never see that version of that person again, or you know, whatever it may be. But like, yeah, we're just, you know, I'm forced. I seize the opportunity every day to grow, and as you see from the show, I'll never choose the easy path. You know, like it's just not who I am.
Yeah.
And, you know, in some ways, my relationship is the greatest opportunity for my continual growth. And, you know, and I know we both see it that way. So that's how we grow, and we do. And she will not, you know, she'll hold me accountable, and I'll do the same. And sometimes, you know, you'll be confronted by your own self, you know? And I think, you know, trust, right? Trusting your path, your journey, your faith, that this is what's meant for you. And then, you know, the universe will take care of the rest, and making mistakes and going, okay, did that. Sorry. I sort of am like, there's no, I think I've, you know, seen how, learning more, like the mistake, I think very early on in life, actually, weirdly, I didn't enjoy making mistakes. Does anybody? I don't know. Maybe some people really do, but I didn't. I wasn't comfortable with messing up.
It'd be hard to find someone who enjoyed making mistakes. Yeah.
And yet, any sage or worthy will tell you it's only through mistakes that you grow, right? So it's like going, okay, you know, like that's where the rich stuff is. That's where you're gonna. So I just try to keep growing, and, you know, accepting, and, you know.
Yeah. How does it feel to introduce your Buddhist practices and teachings to the kids? Like, how does that work? I'm fascinated by.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I say, Namyo Renge Kyo to Daisy, and sometimes on the other side of the world on a movie, she'll be like, I say, Namyo Renge Kyo, and she'll go, Namyo Renge Kyo. I think, and Flynn chanted, you know, I did the same with him. And I don't so Flynn's mother has a beautiful faith in life, I think, and I really respect it. And I don't challenge any of the things, his views that he's obviously imbued through his mother. And, you know, we love to go on walks. I love to go on walks with my son, and we talk a lot. I try to, you know, and at different stages, look, he's 13 now. So it's almost like dad is getting pushed aside, and I kind of know what that feels like. I was the same, you know, so I try not to take it personally. And I miss him, and I'm like, I just text him, I love him and I miss him. But we have these wonderful walks and talks, and I kind of just throughout whatever we're saying, I try to keep reinforcing just the undercurrent philosophy and thinking of my practice, and which is just, you know, are you respecting? Are you, you know, if there is that kid in class who's not, you know, are you supporting that kid that's not getting the support? Because that's where you'll find the richness, right? Because I kind of like, I know that's in his heart as well. I see it. And funny, he said to me, Dad, you know, I'm really good at just bluffing. And I think like, but this is him at 13, you know, flexing a bit in this way of trying to kick. And he's like, yeah, but Dad, I just knew that would be the thing that people would appreciate. I'm like, good, well, just keep working that then.
Yeah.
Because even if your thinking will try and make you say you're going to do, just keep working that. Even if you think it's like you're putting on a show, fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? Just keep doing just keep trying to do the right thing. And eventually you'll start to realize what the right thing is, right? But I love to walk and talk with him, and I just don't overwhelm him with it, because in my faith, I believe by saying Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Say it to me, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So by saying this once, you never have to say it again. You protected 7 generations in your past and 7 generations in your future.
Oh, thank you for that gift. That's beautiful.
So I believe that.
That's
deeply
beautiful.
Believe
yeah,
that.
And I believe
so sometimes I will just walk up to somebody and say, just say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, just once.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them that, and then I'll walk away, whatever. And it'd be like, I believe that. It's like finding a needle in the eye of a haystack. And so you never have to do it again. You've done it. 7 generations past.
I'll see it every time I see you now.
And if you ever, good.
Yeah.
And if it was something that resonated with you at the time or at the moment, then great. I encourage people to do that. It's not, I'm like, well, this is how you do it. It's not a meditational process, right? Yeah. Like a meditation I do as well. I have a meditation, TM practice. But for me, it's like yoga for the mind. It's like when I'm really stressed out or feel like, that too much coffee.
Do you ever get really stressed out? You seem so
chill.
Yeah.
No. I'm sitting here opposite Jay Shetty. Do you want me to show you the other side of me? No, bro. I mean, like you can see it. You'll see the climbing episode. You'll see the potty.
Yeah, I haven't got there.
You'll see the potty mouth and I'm like, I redline, bro. I'm like, I really like, mostly I'm like, I can really, I can be in the red. Like, and that's something that I just try to navigate. But I like that. I embrace it. I accept it.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I can be on in that space. It's like the difference between driving at 30 or 60. It's like, obviously I would, God forbid, you want to observe the speed limit because there are children and things, but like, I know what, so sometimes I can be really intense.
How have you
emotionally?
How have you accepted the parts of yourself that most of us judge, criticize, or feel uncomfortable? Granted that they're not affecting other people.
Aside from chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo?
Yeah.
I think because of that practice, I'm constantly looking at that. But I think it's time, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's experience, because the experiences have taught me like that, shame is not my friend. Guilt, shame. If you spend too much time in that negative thought pattern, we're light energy. We're like little planets, right? Mm-hmm. But if you broke our bodies down, I was having this conversation with somebody who was giving me a massage the other night. She's this amazing woman. And she was like, but we're like little galaxies. If you actually dissolved us, the trillions and billions of, cells and everything, it's like a little galaxy. So we're all little galaxies going around the planet, right? In a way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So all of that energy, which as you know and talked about many times, but it's like, it's whatever you're saying, you become, right? As we all know, all these old adages are so true. So it's not like, but so yeah, I think for me, it's like the shame game doesn't work. I don't want to receive it from anyone. I mean, I had this amazing experience, and I went 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now, 7 years ago. More than 7 years ago, nearly 8 years ago, I went to the Hoffman Institute, which is this wonderful.
Yes, yeah.
And it was, I'd been seeing Katie for a year and I'd broken up, and then we hadn't actually. We'd broken up, yeah. I'd been seeing her for a little while, and then we had broken up, and we got back together. the young love weirdness of trying to find things. But I'd been triggered into this really unique pattern of behavior that I felt I'd inherited from my mom, right? This thing of like, see me, I'm here, you know, with my mom. Like, I'm over here. You know, I think, why, you know what I mean? And trying to get the attention, right? And I was like, oh, one of the worst years internally I can ever remember, because I felt like I was playing a part instead of being a part. And I was just, because I had so many feelings and I was in water that was just uncharted. So a dear friend of mine, Buddhist, had an actor friend from New York had suggested that I do this 2 years ago, and I hadn't picked up on it. James Lacine, this amazing actor, human, just wonderful person. And I was like, sort of remembered when we'd had this breakup, and I'd remembered I'd taken my passport, left everything else, and walked into New York because we'd been in New York. And then I was like, got on a plane home. But before I got on a plane home, I went to his house because it was like 5 a.m. when we'd had this rip-roaring argument. And I was like, took my passport and walked out the door. And I was like, and he'd talked about it. And so I did this course. And I left with these three thinking. And it was a wonderful week where you don't have your phone, you don't have the email. So you have no connection to the outside world, really. And you don't, and people, you know, obviously I was me, but I had this, nobody's there for that. So yes. It's really people are on their own. They're all in their own form of need. So I was wearing like a name tag that was my childhood name or whatever. And then I did 7 days of like, I guess kind of like a group therapy. And it felt like 3 years of therapy in 7 days in a way. And they take you on this beautiful journey through these 7 days where you have like a Thanksgiving dinner, a Christmas dinner, a birthday, and a whole thing from, it's like, it's beautiful the way it's constructed. And I came out with this thinking, and I talked to James at that time about this as well, of feeling safe, seen, and celebrated. I want to feel safe. So in terms of my relationship, so with self first, right? So if I look in the mirror, I feel safe. Do I feel safe with you today? Do I feel seen by you? Am I kind of observing myself? And do I feel celebrated, right? But really it's for the people in my life. Like, do I feel safe with this person? Do I feel seen by this person? And am I feeling celebrated? And can I do that for them? Obviously, right? It's a mirror. So if I'm feeling that way, then you're good. It's a green light. And if I'm not, then I'm going to just step back, take pause until I can feel that way. And if I can't feel that way, then maybe life and the universe will take us on different trajectories. But whilst I feel that way, so safe, seen, and celebrated was something that really made me kind of go, I came back into my life and into my relationship after this. And then I said, we separated. It was interesting. And I was like, I looked up, I was like, okay, this is what's meant. You know, this is some years ago now.
Yeah.
But this stickiness that we had, this connection, and she was never really not a part of my thoughts. And she would reach out in weird ways like Instagram or whatever. And I'd be like, processing, and I was like, and then I made a sort of decision because I had this safe, seen, celebrated thing, not to see her unless she would. And then she actually did this Hoffman as well, and had an amazing experience herself. Wow! And so we just kind of, I think it was like it created a foundation. So we're constantly sort of bouncing off this thing, and sometimes the foundation's really rocky. Of course. And sometimes I don't know. You know, sometimes like, is the universe? Are we still growing? I gave her this picture of a tree, you know, and I was like, and it was this beautiful. I bought it in India, I think, but it was these two trees growing as one. I was like, this is what it should be, right? Yeah. So long as we can, the branches can go all over the place, but the roots and the base of the tree the trunk is growing together. You know. It's the pillars of the temple, right? Yes. You need them to stand strong together so that you can hold hold that. Yeah, but it's been
That's great criteria though. I like that. Safe, seen, and celebrated.
Yeah.
It's like a beautiful way of checking and connecting wavelength.
Yes.
The visual you just painted right now of the two trees feels perfect. Like that visual just resonated so strongly.
Sometimes people are not up for that as well, though.
No.
You know? Sometimes they're not ready for that. It can be really overwhelming. It can be really overwhelming. All of your good intention, right? All of your desire for the greatest outcome can be super intimidating and overwhelming, depending on whether your wife is ready in that day, in that moment. And as we know from, you know, the remarkable, you know, I had this, I thought I was like, when I had Daisy, my daughter, I was like, I mean, I feel like every man should have a daughter before they get married in a way, because it's like you see every emotion under the sun in a split second. And it's like, and you have nothing but love because you're there. There's no judgment. There's just like, I'm just like marveling at her explosion of emotion. And she'll be like, no, daddy, no, dad, mommy, I want that. And I'll be like, if I'd been in, you know, a partner, a reflection of a partner doing that could have really messed me up at different times in my life. Wait, what? See me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm over here, mommy, I'm over here. You know, whatever it may be. You know, our patterns from childhood, whatever that may be. And I'm like, oh. And it's in a way, it's like, you know, so I can have those, you know, with a powerful human, you know, that I've chosen in some ways every day. It's like, got to keep leveling up and trying and making mistakes and going, okay, no, that didn't work. Or I'm going to do this and that's, no, don't do that. You might, you know, but, you know, sometimes it's very interesting, isn't it? I think the masculine in relation to the feminine, you know, like my mind map again, you know, like I'd set an intention around and it was like, oh no, it's not women. It's like the feminine within you. It's like, but in this world that we live in, it's like trying to find the right level, because it's not like obvious, you know, it's not, there's no, it's, you know, I think people are always, you know, how do you have the right balance? It's like, it's like,
you can't,
it's like sometimes you're just really, you know, overly, you know, edgy. And sometimes you just like, you can be that, you can hold that big space because in your mind you're capable. But, you know, I think it's just choosing, right? You just keep choosing, you choose life and you choose to go on a journey and you choose to keep it real and you choose to, for me at least.
I feel what you said about, like for me, my sister's like 4.5 years younger than me or something. And I feel like I remember holding her when she was born. Last year I got to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. Like, and it was, my nickname for my sister is Kid because I've treated her like my daughter since she was born. And she's always felt that way to me. And you're so right. Like my wife will always say to me, gosh, when you're around your sister, you just, you know, completely different in this. And it's that fatherly, brotherly.
Does she like that?
Well, my sister.
No, your wife. Does she?
She finds it adorable.
Oh,
she finds it adorable.
She's like, lean into that more. No. Is that not really, not so much? It's just like, no. It's just like,
no. She finds that adorable, but she sees what capacity I have for tolerance and for what you're saying, that being that bigger holding space.
When you have your own daughter.
When you have it for that love, and you're so right that when you've been able to experience that, it's so much easier to understand. I always feel like I was raised by my mom and tried to raise my sister the best as I could. And it was almost like that's made me a better husband than I would have been.
Right.
Because I had a different experience with women that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have a younger sister and I had a younger brother or whatever it may have been.
Right.
And so that resonates very strongly. But also this idea of, I've seen myself act with my wife, with the people I love in a way that I don't like at all. And I've seen myself act in the best way possible. And I'll oscillate between the two depending on where I'm at on any given day. And it's what you said earlier, that it takes two people to be able to let go. It takes two people to be able to forgive. It takes two people to be able to not over amplify or underreact or overreact. And you're constantly playing in that space if you want a loyal, committed, long-term relationship, which has very different positives than a short, easy, quick moment. And
quick fix,
and it's almost like, it's what you said, it's choosing what you want.
Once you decide, we have that idea in my practice. Once it's like, and Sensei discusses, you know, once you decide, your whole world will move in that direction. Once you decide, you know what I mean? everything is set up for the universe to support that decision, but you must decide, whatever it may be. And then if the wheels fall off along the way, you know, you realize that you've decided and there are mistakes, but then you set about fixing. And I wrote this like a mission statement when I first met her, because I wanted to try to articulate all these crazy feelings that I was having at the time, which was like a reveal that I hadn't had in a long time in somehow. And one of the things that I said in this, like this letter I wrote her was, you know, we're going to bring our little kids out, you know, our inner child, we're going to bring out, and I'll duke it out with you as much as you like, so long as you just promise to keep getting up, you know, because it's like, if we don't get up, I need to know that, like, you'll duke it out, I'll duke it out, but that we'll get up, you know, and keep, you know, because it doesn't matter about, you're going to go down. People are going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. Life is set for that. You know, it's not meant to be. The opportunities, as we said at the beginning, for growth don't come through an easy path. They're not when everything's going great. It's when the shit's hit the fan, right? And that's when, you know, so I kind of feel like I'm constantly like, okay, when's the next one? Next lesson. When's the next one coming? But, you know, how much, you know, how much humility do I need to learn today? You know, or what do I need to do? And what choices have I made that have led to this? And how am I going to own that? You know what I mean?
What's the difference between that? Because I resonate with that. I always say to people that when things are going bad, work hard. And when things are going good, work harder. Right? You're always pushing yourself to learn, grow, evolve more when actually things are good. Because a lot of us, we do the opposite. When things are good, we get complacent, we get lost. What is the difference for you between that mindset getting exhausting versus energizing? Because I think a lot of people would say, gosh, if I'm always having to figure out what to learn and what message and from the universe and my partner, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're energized by that, which is what you see in the show. Like, you're energized by the idea that there's more to learn. What's the difference? What have you found? How are you able to sustain that level of wanting to evolve and grow?
I think that I just came in that way, bro.
That's just how you're built.
I think I came in that way. I think we all come in different, right? When I reflect on all of the opportunities for growth in my life, they all reinforce this idea that this is what I need to learn at this time, right? In retrospect, when you're younger and in that moment of crisis, whatever that may be, and listen, I didn't have a mobile phone until I was 20, right? But there is a window of time in my life which is almost like a void because of the immense pressure and experience that life was throwing at me at such a rapid pace that I literally can, like, there are almost feel like blank spots, right? Like, I can't even, like, my best friends would go, well, remember when we went to Japan on that press? And I was like, we went to Japan together? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So, you know, but yeah, I think that's it. I think that
makes sense.
I think starting at a young age with a practice like mine helped me as well to recognize, because we're constantly reinforcing this idea of opportunities through obstacles or opportunities. And even when you're in it, it's nightmares, like, oh, these exams, this thing, this, you know, or this boyfriend or this girlfriend or this situation, this, like, I think it's always simplify as well, right? Steady.
Yeah.
Like, life, you know, is, you know, at least my experience is like, I love the high octane, right? And I've been at that depths. I love the depth as well. But when I'm steady, when I just like come back to the simple, right? Simplify. Because sometimes you just need a walk, you know what I mean? You just need to go outdoors. Sometimes you just need to look at the sky, take a deep breath. Sometimes it's just, and it's a few little touchstones that you can create for yourself, you know, so that you have tools, right?
Yeah.
Create your own toolbox. And I think that's what I got from just so many different things, whether it's Hoffman or a plant journey,
Yeah, so many.
or an encounter with somebody important, or my relationship to Stakelbeck, my mentor, and I think it's also we're all wired differently. So like, you know, if you keep leaning into that area of and not being afraid to lean into the discomfort of life, then that's what the show is giving you. You know, you're leaning into the discomfort, you get the benefit, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, again, that might just be getting up from your couch, turning off the TV, or not scrolling on your phone, or putting, you know, just deleting that app for like 24 hours so that you're just not being ruled by something outside of yourself. I think in this new age, right, we've been in the age of the internet. I think in this new age of AI, which there's so much anxiety and sort of, you know, nervousness around. And I saw, you know, Sam Altman speak about some of this stuff. And I thought it was so interesting. But I think my takeaway from what he had said and what I think is true for my life and what I can sense is discipline, self-discipline, because it's a choice to pick up your phone. It's a choice to get lost in your phone. It's a choice to keep scrolling. Or you could choose to put it down and step outside and simplify, do that meditation, do that yoga class. It's all choices, right? But I think the people that if, as and when, you know, we see this new chapter of life, it's going to be totally different. My son, your children, when you come into the world, they're not going to know a world without super intelligence. They're just not going to know that. Like my son doesn't know a world without the internet. How's that impacted his life? I do.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
But they're not going to know a world without super intelligence, and it's going to bring remarkable benefit to our lives, no doubt. I'm sure, health, healing, you know, access, life. But it's like those old adages, like devil's hands, you know, idle hands are the devil's playground. So I keep thinking, like, what's the discipline I'm going to create, the routines and disciplines to create and keep working at, so that I don't slip off into that, because I do it. I can find myself just going, and I kind of love my algorithm, by the way. like it'll send me all of your things and other people's, you know, and like messaging around. It's definitely listening to me. Yeah. Messaging around, oh, this relationship person is talking about fantastic things, you know. And I'm like, oh, that would be great for the world to see, or whatever, you know, or whatever it may be. So like, it's not all bad, but it is, I think, the discipline, the self-mastery of discipline, right? Self-discipline and self-mastery to know.
The one skill needed.
The one that will protect. Because if you're like, what do they call them in games where it's like non-player NPC, is it?
NPC,
right?
Yeah.
We can all become those. We can all just switch off and turn on our autopilot and just be like, because you don't want to, because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. You're overwhelmed by the consistent. I mean, you know, if you keep looking at the news, you're just going to be overwhelmed. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
You know, I have so many friends who are like on both sides of, you know, conflicts, you know, whether, you know, and just, it's just, you just go, you can just be overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
You can just,
and that is where we're at. I think we're overwhelmed, we're over consuming, we're overexposed.
Honestly. We see and hear and understand. We get
and there's no
access
discipline.
to so much more information than we need, and then we continue to get more. And then what's true, what's not true?
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's why it's a lot, and that's why if anyone's not feeling disciplined or is struggling, there's a lot of compassion and empathy there, because
so much.
It's so hard.
You show me a human, I'll show you anyone, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's true of relationships, right? I think one of the things, like Laird and Gabby Hamilton were a big part of my life at a period in my life a few years ago where I was separated from my partner, Flynn's mum, and I was living kind of on my own in Malibu, and they were such a really beautiful couple. The way I learned so much from seeing how they interacted. And I always appreciate that. I took that away with me, but I think it's like, I kind of respect couples more than anything else almost now today, somehow as well, when we talk about relationship, because it's the people that have kind of gone, they're continuing to choose and not to upgrade or think they're upgrading, or that the grass is greener, you know, because we can all do that.
Of course.
And maybe we will. And there's no judgment there either too. By the way, no judgment on any of it. But personally, I kind of go, oh, wow. you know, I admire that because it's not easy, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because as we age and change, and it's like, and we're all being told that like, you can get this new handbag that will go with this new car, or you can get this new watch and this new thing, and you're just going to keep and I love a shiny object.
So do I. Yeah.
I love a shiny object, you know?
How have you managed to maintain your Buddhist practice and philosophy in Hollywood? Because I imagine that,
Dude, that Buddhist philosophy and products has been my anchor.
Yeah.
It's not, I haven't maintained it. It's been my, it's maintained me. It's held me. I really feel like it's my super cape.
You can tell
it's my
that.
cape.
It's obvious. Yeah.
It's my superpower, you know, and it's available to anyone, but I got it at a young age, and I'm like, it's my wings. It's my shield. It's my wisdom. It's my courage. It's my compassion. If I just use it, and sometimes I won't. There are days I won't chant, and I'm like, I mean, look, I'm years and years into this, so it's just I feel that it's never gone far from me, but I know when I'm not. I'm like, wait, what's going on? Often it's been when I've been in a relationship, by the way.
Wow.
Often I've been in a relationship and I don't. And I was like, wait, what? Why? Why is that? Why am I not when I'm, because what's being so, yeah, but it was literally my.
I can feel it. It's very obvious. It's very evident from the show and today. It's very real in your veins. What's something you feel you're being called right now? What's the fear you're being called to overcome right now, or the lesson that you're being questioned? I sat with this question last year, and it was really, really interesting for me in my own meditation. It was revealed to me that if I really want to serve and have the impact that I want to have, that I'll have to be okay with dealing with more stress, pain, external kind of
energy coming at you to overcome,
yes,
so that you can you can paint a bigger canvas.
Correct.
And have
but
a bigger.
It will require that. And that was a very interesting, almost request or question that I was hearing from the universe or from God or from my own spiritual practice of, this is what's required of you. Are you ready for you? Are you okay? What have you heard that or felt that you are being? What fear are you being asked to overcome, or what lesson are you being asked to learn right now? Anything comes to, because you've conquered so many fears in the show and gone to the edge. What's an edge that is being requested of you?
I think that our deepest fears often lie in